Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are checking out part 2 of the Mordian Iron Guard. Obviously it's a whole video that I split into 2 parts just for length's sake. If I didn't, the video will be up at about an hour, and I just don't have the concentration and the fortitude to keep doing those hour-long reactions, as you know by now. But yeah, we're going to continue on with the second part of this video. We ended on Arch describing the fortresses they have, and obviously the chaos invasion just started, so we have him talking about how they fortified the fortresses so you can't break in, so pretty good, you know, pretty strong. And the Iron Guard are about to do battle with the chaos invaders, so yeah, that should be interesting. If you are new, be sure to subscribe, and once you've subscribed, feel free to suggest a video down below in the comments. And yeah, man, I'll try and react my best to react to it. But yeah, we're going to get into this video. Let's go.
And whilst of course these fortifications would have been designed with civilian resistance in mind, they would still no doubt have access to heavily fortified bunkers and automated weapon systems. They might not be ideally suited for resisting a large-scale conventional military campaign, but they would undoubtedly be formidable enough to give any attacker pause, allowing the Iron Guard to mobilize and organize themselves, and then eventually attempt a breakout, which was exactly what they did. After fully getting to grasp of the situation, the command and control structure of the Mordian Iron Guard decided that holding everything was, in all due essentiality, impossible. Demons, traitor legionaries, and millions of chaos worshippers were quite literally raining down upon the city. They were under attack anywhere and everywhere at once.
Literally hell unleashed. Oh man, if there was a Astartes, traitor legion Astartes, man, I'd be scared. I would have retreated.
As such, the only reasonable thing to do would be to coalesce the Iron Guard into areas of strategic importance, and almost invariably, the areas deemed most strategically important were the holdings of the Tetrarchs themselves. And that might at first sound like a somewhat selfish maneuver, and, well, yes it was, obviously, but again, I remind you, Mordian was an exceedingly unstable planet, and any intelligent noble on such a planet will not be taking any chances with his own security. In all due likelihood, the Tetrarch's palaces would be virtual fortresses in their own right, fully equipped with barracks, fortifications, bunkers, and automated weapon systems. Thusly, it wasn't purely for their own self-defense, although, well, majoritively it probably was, but it also made sense from a military perspective. These areas would almost certainly be the most heavily fortified, and thusly, they would be the areas from which the Iron Guard could offer the most effective resistance. The fact that the overwhelming majority of the planet's population would be left to their own devices, well, collateral damage. And this, of course, would be another benefit of making sure that the friends, families, and loved ones of the Iron Guard would all be billeted in the same areas as the Tetrarchs. They would be falling back to defend their loved ones. The fact that 90% of the population was about to be messily devoured by demons, they probably wouldn't give that much of a shit about. After all, these are troops that have been specifically trained to beat down this very civilian population. In all due likelihood, the overwhelming majority of the Iron Guard would view the civilian population as little more than enemies, as the very same people who are throwing Molotovs at them, shooting at them, throwing bricks at them, and who hate them. They would have absolutely no compunction whatsoever.
Molotovs seem like a valuable waste of petrol or whatever the hell they put in there. These guys have no resources. Why are they wasting stuff? Oh man.
About abandoning them to the ravaging hordes. And especially not if falling back would mean that they would be able to defend their own families. And since the Iron Guard, supremely disciplined as they are, could now occupy defensive positions, they began taking an extremely heavy toll upon the invaders. Every single hab block was turned into a fortress, every single street was turned into a killing zone, and every single palace was now bristling with heavy weapons. Las cannons, auto guns, heavy bolters, and las guns in organized, disciplined ranks, firing volley after volley of disciplined las fire into the invaders.
You know, the word volley is really funny. I thought volley was something like when you fire catapults. Maybe I was wrong. or maybe it's just firing big rounds, I guess. You know, it seems really simple, but they have a planet, like a side of the planet that's like impossible to go on. Would it not make sense to go into like the fortresses or the villa things that the nobles have on that side? Because the chaos demon things are not going to be able to go in there, right? Unless they're resistant to UV or whatever the radiation, whatever the hell it is. But, you know, what do I know?
And since the Iron Guard do not retreat unless specifically told to do so, every single solitary one of these strongpoints would have to be taken till the last defender. Every single hab block would have to be stormed room by room in the face of fierce opposition. Every single street would have to be stormed. Every single pillbox would have to be broken into and cleansed. Every single heavy weapons emplacement would have to be destroyed, and every single guardsman would have to be killed. Mordian might be dying, but it was dying about as goddamn slow as it possibly could. Eventually, only the Tetrarch's main palace was left and its garrison of Iron Guard. They had been pushed back to this absolute last bastion that was currently brimming with weaponry. They easily repulsed an assault by traitor legionaries, which is no mean feat in and of itself, but having learned their lessons once, they sent in the cannon fodder next. Millions of practically unarmed chaos followers were assaulting this one single strongpoint, throwing themselves against it for hours in an effort to either exhaust the defenders or simply cause them to run out of ammunition. But even this horde attack eventually petered out and failed. However, at this point, the Mordian Iron Guard...
It's like the World War Z thing where they run up the wall, which is stupid, but, you know, they don't care about themselves, so they just, like, fucking run into walls. That would be a sight to see, fucking weird chaos worshippers just running fucking into fortress walls, dude. I'd pay to see that.
...was severely reduced. They had been pushed out of virtually all of their defensive fortifications and were now fighting on the steps of the palace itself. And smelling blood in the water, the chaotic forces initiated their final assault. Traitor legionaries mixed in with demons began one last hammer blow assault upon the last Tetrarch palace on Mordia. And just as this wave of violence was to wash over the last defenders, suddenly the skies above Mordia began to clear. The astropaths located in orbit above the planet had been trying to unravel the spell that had caused the rift in reality to appear in the first place. It had taken them days, if not weeks, but they had finally managed to unravel it. And with the closing of the rift, the demonic allies of the traitor legionaries and their chaos followers dissipated back into the ether, leaving the traitor legionaries and their mortal followers to face the wrath of the entire planet, plus anything and everything that remains in orbit. Now, traitor legionaries are not stupid. They haven't lived this long fighting battles that they know they can't win, and so they immediately began to withdraw, pulling back to any and all void-capable craft that they had taken with them during the early stages of the invasion, or trying to steal anything and everything void-capable from the planet, leaving their mortal followers behind, hopefully, to slow down the pursuit of the Iron Guard. Mordian had done the impossible and resisted a full-scale demon invasion for long enough for the entire thing to collapse in on itself, a feat very, very few planets within the Imperium can boast of having equaled. And it was this act that truly launched the Iron Guard into fame and fortune. Imperial commanders not only across the segmentum, but in fact in different segmentums altogether, began clamoring for reinforcements in the form of Iron Guard regiments, as their discipline was quickly recognized.
Listen, if they got pushed all the way back up to the last noble's palace, would that mean all the regular citizens are dead? Which means you've only got those guys left. Where's the new Iron Guard coming from?
To be a rather handy thing to have on the battlefield. It does, however, have a few drawbacks. While the Iron Guard can generally speaking be relied upon to fight until the last man and the last bullet, and hell, the last bayonet, this occasionally has a drawback. the Iron Guard is entirely reliant upon a functional command and control structure. They will not withdraw without orders. They will not assault without orders, which means that if their command and control system gets somehow compromised or indeed intercepted entirely, leaving the regiment without direct access to their superiors, they will simply carry out the last received order until they receive something else.
No awareness.
Which means that a regiment of Iron Guardsmen will quite happily stand in the way of overwhelming odds without retreating and die in a glorious last stand.
I mean, that's nothing special. Pretty much every Imperial Guard regiment does that. So, you know, the Krieg guys would just, instead of standing, holding, they'd run towards it. So, you know, really and truly, it's nothing surprising.
When the overall campaign might have been much better served with their retreats. Additionally, while the Iron Guard is more than proficient in fighting in the style of modern armies that are usually employed by the Imperial Guard in a loose skirmish formation where each individual squad will operate individually, again they are entirely reliant upon that command and control system. Individual squad leaders, or indeed platoon leaders, will not act without the direct orders of their superiors. This means that they are extremely inflexible and cannot take rapid decisions in the field. Or, well, they probably could, they simply just won't. Which means that the Iron Guard is at a severe disadvantage if the combat situation is at all fluid, as they will simply not act upon their own initiative. This means that in more advanced and quote-unquote
initiative is important. Come on, Iron Guard.
Modern combat scenarios, you will be better served by practically any other Guard regiment.
That's true.
However, if you need somebody to hold their ground against insurmountable odds, the Iron Guard are most definitively your regiment. And if you need somebody to fight against hordes of enemies, a la Tyranids or Orcs, that usually do not employ a great deal of battlefield finesse, again, the Iron Guard will do extremely well.
Yes.
Any situation...
Every Imperial Guard regiment has its drawback. Like Krieg, they're just a bit crazy. They'll just run into gunfire, and they don't listen to anyone else. They just want to die, basically. So, you know, everyone has like that one downfall. Same with the what's it called, the Space Marine chapters. They also have that one downfall. The Ultramarines are similar to these guys. They're not very adaptable in the field, you know.
They are allowed to regiment themselves as massive blocks of organized infantry, well within preferably shouting distance of their superiors. They will perform exquisitely. And in all due reality, the true strengths of the Mordian Iron Guard are best shown when they are not fighting as regular infantry. The Mordian Iron Guard, of course, comes in many flavors, as most Imperial Guard regiments do. They can be in the form of an armored regiment, artillery regiments, super heavy tanks, specialized engineer regiments, heavy infantry, light infantry, although that is fairly rare, since light infantry usually require a certain degree of autonomy, since they are often expected to operate outside the usual command and control structure, and of course, good old-fashioned line infantry. But whilst of course they are quite effective as your good old-fashioned line infantry, especially if employed against an enemy that they are allowed to line up in formation and fight against with mass-disciplined volleys of lasgun fire, they work even better when it comes to operating heavy weaponry. Think about it. These troops are drilled and disciplined to a degree where a soldier will continue to carry out his given task until he literally collapses from exhaustion. This means that they are perfectly suited for heavy defensive regiments that need to operate heavy weapons, like artillery batteries. They are capable of maintaining a rate of fire that very, very few regiments can match, and they can do so for days on end. Same for heavy armored companies. They can continue to carry out their duties in a tank crew, for example, almost beyond the limits of human endurance. The same also goes for super heavy regiments, where the supremely disciplined and enduring crew can continue to operate the various systems on a Baneblade, for example, at peak efficiency for far longer than most regiments. allowing super heavy vehicles to truly live up to their full potential without necessarily worrying about the constraints of their oh-so-fleshy crew members. And of course, their particular brand of discipline and dogged determination means that they are perfectly suited for the role of heavy shock troopers. Simply give them an objective and they will happily walk straight into heavy machine gun fire without batting an eye until either the machine gun is destroyed or they are.
So they must get along well with the Kriegs. That's exactly what they do. Oh, the Krieg guys, man. Death Corp.
These non-line infantry roles has one considerable benefit. It allows the Mordians to be placed away from other Imperial Guard regiments. The average Iron Guardsman has a stick so far up his ass that he rivals your average Imperial fist. And he values discipline and self-sacrifice above
Rogue Dawn, you're gonna take that? It's a bit rude. Don't think Rogue Dawn is very, very happy with that. I mean, I was going to say Pyran Dragoons, but you know.
Everything else. In other words, they are completely and utterly insufferable moral busybodies that are entirely convinced of their own superiority compared to any other Imperial Guard regiment in existence. Hell, they will barely and grudgingly admit that maybe the Adeptus Astartes could rival them when it comes to discipline and purity of purpose.
The super soldier.
This, unsurprisingly, tends to grate on the nerves of anyone placed nearby. In fact, I would absolutely love to see the situation that would occur if you put an Iron Guard regiment next to a regiment of Maccabian Janissaries.
Ooh.
Both sides would be trying to beat the other one above the head with their chosen brand of morality.
I have watched the Maccabian Janissaries a while back now. I think it was in December, so yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun.
Guardsmen would be trying to instill within the Maccabian Janissaries the benefits of a strict moral disciplinary system, while the Maccabian Janissaries would be trying to beat the Iron Guardsmen over the head with the Book of Emperor bothering until they finally submitted that the God Emperor was correct in absolutely everything and that they should pray more often. Personally, I would imagine that at the very least small arms fire would be exchanged between the two forces within minutes of them talking to each other. And finally, let's go over their equipment. Your average Mordian Iron Guardsman is slightly better equipped than your average Imperial Guardsman, due to the fact that they are an elite force. They need to be. Their planet's resources are focused in the Iron Guardsmen, and they are their first and last defense both against their own population and any nasty skulking little threats that might exist outside of their own gravity well. The first and best example of this increased standard of equipment is the triplex pattern lasgun, the standard issue weapon of the Mordian Iron Guardsman. This is a considerably more advanced weapon than your average Imperial lasgun, and comes with 3 firing modes: single, triple burst, and fully automatic, along with a special energy setting. The normal Imperial lasgun comes with 3 settings: light, medium, and fuck that thing in particular. The triplex pattern, however...
Well, yeah, fuck that thing in particular. That shit must have some mad recoil. Boom. I mean, rip to whatever that one hits though, you know, in that setting.
It goes one step further with the fuck that thing over there specifically right in the ass, which is an overcharged setting. Which essentially turns the lasgun into a mini version of the Imperial Long-Las, firing specialized hotshot ammunition. This means that instead of simply leaving embarrassing scorch mark on your average traitor space marine, it might actually penetrate his armor. Ooh. Granted, you'd still best aim for weak spots, but again, you've actually got a chance of penetrating Astartes' power armor. And when you fire it at a normal human, well, whilst your standard issue Imperial lasgun will leave a fist-sized hole in your average human, the fuck 'em right in the ass setting will simply just vaporize his torso. There is, of course, a couple of rather severe drawbacks. The weapon is not designed to operate on this setting in any kind of extended period of time. It will severely reduce the lifetime expectancy of the weapon and the ammunition used in it. Worst case scenario, both the power pack and the weapon will be rendered inoperable, and worst case scenario, the power pack might simply just explode.
Oh no.
It is, in other words, the kind of oh shit button that you would not give to anyone that did not have the discipline of the Mordian Iron Guard. After all, they can be trusted to only use the fuck 'em in the ass setting when it is absolutely necessary, and in all due likelihood, even when it is absolutely necessary, they're gonna have to be ordered to do so. But of course, even the
Don't hit any Slaneshi followers with that setting, they might actually enjoy it.
finest weapon in the galaxy is of little use without some actual ammunition. The Mordian Iron Guardsman carries 2 charge packs, and unlike most veteran soldiers, he is likely to carry just 2 charge packs, unless specifically ordered to bring more. In the unlikely scenario that the Iron Guard officers have misjudged the amount of ammunition they require, each guardsman is also equipped with a Mordian pattern combat knife. This is less of a knife and more of a sword. In fact, it would probably be correct to refer to it as a sword bayonet. This means that it is a fair bit larger than your average knife, and thusly can be used both for slashing and stabbing in close quarters combat. And speaking of good old-fashioned CQC, the Iron Guardsman is also enhanced with a surgically implanted injector system with 5 doses of combat stims. These will allow the Iron Guardsman to continue fighting despite injury and exhaustion for a
My man's got steroids. They've got 40k steroids, bro. What's going on?
considerable amount of time. Of course, utilizing all 5 charges is going to have a rather severe effect on his system when he finally gets off the stim high, and he's going to be feeling one fuck of a hangover, but at least, in all due likelihood, he will still be alive to feel said hangover. And finally, on the weapon front, the Iron Guardsmen are not usually equipped with grenades. They may be issued grenades by a superior officer, however, normally they do not carry crack nor frag grenades of any sort. And the reason, of course, is that that kind of weapon usually requires some kind of personal initiative on when you're supposed to be throwing your explosive device. And the Mordian Iron Guard view personal initiative kinda like the bubonic plague.
That'd be so funny. They'd need an order. Just be like, everyone throw your grenades. I can just imagine that would be so funny.
With hatred, disdain, and not a small amount of disgust. When it comes to personal protection in the form of body armor, the Iron Guard are a little bit unique because, of course, they enter into battle in full dress uniform. However, that does not mean that they are entirely unarmored. In fact, those pretty little dress uniforms are flak vests, with the entirety of the uniform consisting of layers of ablative and impact-absorbent materials, which provides roughly the same armor protection as your standard issue flak vest. Which actually means that despite their pretty little looks, the Iron Guardsman is better protected than most Imperial soldiers.
It's like John Wick's suit, like you can't shoot through it. It's like bulletproof.
And finally, of course, we come to the necessities. A rucksack, 4 weather gear, anointed maintenance toolkit, a mess kit and water canteen, 2 weeks of rations, a blanket, a sleeping bag, a rechargeable lamp pack, a grooming kit, very, very important as far as the Iron Guard are concerned, dog tags, a copy of the Imperial Infantryman's uplifting toilet paper, and of course a dress uniform cleaning kit. Because, well, duh. After all, the minor inconvenience that you find...
I can imagine dress cleaning kit being one of those tape rollers, you know, like you get pet hair off just rolling his fucking uniform. I can imagine.
yourself in a life or death struggle against the enemies of humanity is no excuse to not keep your uniform properly pressed and cleaned.
True.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Mordian Iron Guard.
That's the end of that. I actually got these 2 episodes quite close on timing, which was the first time, because both times there's been quite a big gap. But, you know, getting better as we go. Alright, a little review. The Iron Guard. Now, the Iron Guard, they just seem like every other Imperial Guard Legion we've checked out in the form, like they're unique. They have their strengths and their weaknesses. They're obviously very, very disciplined, and as a unit, they're very strong, but they have 0 initiative, and if you require them to make any kind of on-the-fly decision, they're gonna die. They can't even throw grenades. So, you know, I guess that sums them up a little bit. Interesting, their planet's obviously a death world pretty much. They think they're better than they are, but as are most Imperial guards, and everyone in 40k thinks they're the best. So yeah, it would be interesting to see these guys fight. I'd love to probably punch one in the face, you know what I mean, because they seem like pricks. But, you know, is what it is. But yeah, man, that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to me and Arch, of course, if you haven't already. And I'll see you all next time.